The name that one of the NFL's most respected insiders just connected to the Philadelphia Eagles this week is not a receiver, not a safety, and not any of the players who have dominated the conversations of this offseason. It is the name of the best player on the entire field in the NFL who is not a quarterback. A defender who last season led the entire league in sacks with 23 and also led the league in tackles for loss with 33, two numbers that no other player in the recent history of the position has managed to combine in the same year. And the detail that makes this connection even more explosive is what a local Philadelphia insider confirmed in the same week. Howie Roseman checks in on this player every single year, without exception. What Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated said about the Eagles and this defender, why the timing of this connection matters more than it appears at first glance, and what the real scenario looks like that would make this trade possible before this generation's window closes. You are going to understand all of it right here. If you are a true Eagles fan, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because if this trade happens, it will be the biggest defensive move in this franchise's history. The name of a defender with a $160 million contract with the Cleveland Browns keeps returning to Eagles conversations with a regularity that is not a coincidence. Before that extension was signed, many believed Philadelphia had a legitimate shot at closing a deal for him. The trade did not happen. The defender stayed in Cleveland, but the connection never fully disappeared. And now, with the Eagles' OTAs underway and an SI insider connecting both sides publicly for the first time in months, the rumor has returned with an intensity that deserves serious analysis. That player is Myles Garrett. Albert Breer was direct in placing the Eagles at the top of the list of teams to watch if the Cleveland Browns decide the time has come to reset their roster. Breer's words were specific. The Eagles are a team you always pay attention to in this discussion. And then he added a variable that puts pressure on Cleveland. If you do not make the trade now, you risk in a year or two, when your team may actually be ready to win, getting a lot less for him. That is the language of an insider communicating that the window of maximum value for Garrett is open right now, and that the teams who want him know it. Jimmy Kempski of Philly Voice completed the picture from Philadelphia's side. Kempski confirmed what anyone who closely follows the Eagles' front office had already suspected. Howie Roseman checks in on Myles Garrett every year. And then he added the argument that defines Roseman's roster-building philosophy with absolute precision. It does not matter that the Eagles already have a very good defensive line group. If you can add the best non-quarterback player in the NFL, you do it. That line from Kempski is the most accurate summary of how Roseman thinks about roster construction that any observer of this franchise could articulate. The Eagles do not need Myles Garrett to be a good team. They already have Jalen Carter, who many analysts consider the best defensive tackle in the league. They have Jonathan Greenard arriving via trade. They have Arnold Ebiketie and Jalix Hunt in the pass rush rotation. In terms of immediate need, the position is not in collapse. But immediate need and talent maximization are two completely different things in the mind of a general manager who has spent his entire career adding elite pieces regardless of whether the roster needed them or not. You add the best available player. Always. To understand why Myles Garrett is the best non-quarterback player in the NFL and why any franchise with championship aspirations should be willing to pay any price to have him, you need to look at what he did in the 2025 season with a level of detail that goes far beyond sack numbers. 23 sacks in 17 games with a Cleveland Browns team that finished the season with one of the worst records in the league. He led the NFL in tackles for loss with 33. He recorded 39 quarterback hits throughout the year. Those are the numbers of a player who is being blocked by 2 or 3 people on every single play because there is no other consistent way to stop him, and who still produces at a level no other defender in the league comes anywhere close to. What makes Garrett truly unique is not just the statistical production. It is what happens to an entire defense when he is on the field. When the best pass rusher in the world is on one side of the formation, entire offenses are forced to redistribute protection resources in a way that opens space for every other defender around him. Jalen Carter already receives excess blocker attention because he is a dominant defensive tackle. Garrett, on the other side of the formation, would make Carter's life even easier than it already is. The defensive math with both players on the same roster is one that no offensive coordinator in the league can solve with the normal protection resources teams have available. And the specific combination with what Vic Fangio is building at the Eagles is particularly intriguing. Fangio is one of the best defensive coordinators in NFL history. The secondary he is assembling, with Cooper DeJean migrating to safety, with the Mitchell-Woolen-DeJean trio and nickel packages, is one of the most sophisticated and unpredictable in the league. But all of Fangio's coverage sophistication works better when the defense can pressure the quarterback without bringing additional blitzes. And if there is one player in the world capable of generating elite pressure without needing anyone's help, that player is Myles Garrett. The real obstacle to this potential connection is the contract. Garrett is in the second season of a 4-year, $160 million deal with the Cleveland Browns. His cap hit for the 2026 season is $23.2 million. For the Eagles, who are managing their cap space with surgical precision while negotiating the extensions of Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, and Cooper DeJean, absorbing $23.2 million for a pass rusher is a very different conversation than one that would happen in an off-season with more flexibility. But Breer raised a variable that changes that equation if Cleveland decides the franchise's future does not run through Garrett. His trade value right now is significantly higher than it will be in 2 years. If the Browns enter a genuine rebuild, the return they can receive for Garrett in this offseason is substantially greater than at any future point. And when the selling franchise has urgency to maximize the immediate return, the acquisition price for the buyer tends to have more flexibility than it appears on the surface. From Philadelphia's side, the other variable that needs to be monitored is the timing of the A.J. Brown trade. The space being freed up with the receiver's departure, approximately $16.35 million in effective cap space for 2026, was originally projected to cover the extensions of Carter, Mitchell, and DeJean. But if Roseman can structure those extensions in phases across the next 2 years, the Brown space could create a temporary window to absorb part of the cost of a Garrett acquisition. It is not a simple path, but it is exactly the kind of financial engineering that Roseman has a documented track record of executing when the target player justifies the effort. Kempski's argument is more than an informal compliment to Garrett's talent. It is a declaration about the roster-building philosophy that defines the Eagles as long as Roseman is in charge. Franchises that convince themselves the roster is already good enough and stop pursuing additional excellence are the same ones that stagnate after a title. Franchises that remain aggressive in the pursuit of the best available talent, regardless of positional need, are the ones that build dynasties. And Howie Roseman did not spend years building this organization to start stopping his checks on the best players in the league now. With Albert Breer publicly connecting the Eagles to Myles Garrett, Jimmy Kempski confirming that Roseman checks in on him every year, and 23 sacks in a single season making the competitive case for the trade irresistible, do you think this deal happens before training camp? Is a roster with Jalen Carter and Myles Garrett on the same defensive line the best defensive group in Eagles history? Or is the acquisition price simply going to be too high for Philadelphia to close? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back later with the latest Eagles news.